What did you observe as far as President Trump and his relationship with you or Mr. Epstein?
Well, I just want to say for my relationship with President Trump, relationship's a big word, but I just want to say that I met him, or I believe I may have, because of my father in the 90s.
Yep. Okay.
So my father liked him very much, and he really liked his wife as well, because they were both Czechoslovakian. And as far as I'm concerned, President Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me. And I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now, and I like him, and I've always liked him. So that is the sum and substance of my entire relationship with him.
What about Mr. Epstein's relationship with him?
I don't know how they met, and I don't know how they became friends. I certainly saw them together, and I remember the few times I observed them together that they were friendly. I mean,
was that in social settings, or was that in private settings?
I believe I only ever saw them in social settings. I don't recall any private settings.
Did you ever observe President Trump receive a massage?
Never.
Did you ever observe, you said that I mean, have you seen there's photographs, public photographs of Mr. Epstein and President Trump together?
Yes.
And there's photographs of, I think you're in some of the photographs
yes.
as well. Those all appear to be social settings.
Yes. That's my memory. There were social settings. I don't know Epstein's, if he had, whatever the nature of the president's friendship, if you will, or however you want to define that with Epstein, I was never witness. I think they were friendly, like people are in social settings. I don't think they were close friends, or I certainly never witnessed the president in any of, I don't recall ever seeing him in his house, for instance. I actually never saw the president in any type of massage setting. I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects.
When's the last time you think you saw in person President Trump?
It's been a long time. Probably not. Sometime in the beginning, mid 2000s maybe, and it would only have been a social setting, as far as I recall.
And did you ever hear Mr. Epstein or anybody say that President Trump had done anything inappropriate with masseuses or with anybody in your world?
Absolutely never. In any context.
There's been a lot of conversations about whether Mr. Epstein maintained like a list of people, like a book of famous people that he knew, it's called a black book or a client list or a list. Did you know of the existence of any such list?
There is no list. We'll start with that. The genesis of that story I can actually trace for you from its absolute inception, if that is what you're interested in.
Well, first, you know, to be short, there is no list, there's no client list, nothing like that.
No, there's nothing like that.
That you know.
That I, obviously.
Right.
Yeah. So that narrative that was created and then built upon, and it just mushroomed into what, basically this is like a Salem witch trial. People go and lost their minds for this thing. I understand that. But the issue is, how do you satisfy a mob who can't understand the lifestyle because it's like P. Diddy in Redux on TV with Clintons and Trump? I mean, it's bananas. And while some of it is real, he did do those things. I'm definitely not disputing that. But this was a man, he didn't even believe he had a real business. I happen to believe he did. Did he grip? I don't know, because I wasn't really in his business. But this is a one man. He's not some. They've made him into this. He's not that interesting. He's a disgusting guy who did terrible things to young kids. You're not going to hear me say what he did to people who are over the age of 18. I'm sorry. I'm not going to go there.
She didn't enter the witness box during her trial because she would have heard scores of women come and say how she introduced them to Epstein and prepared them for sex with Epstein, even though they were underage. And this is what she was convicted of. There's not a word of any of that. She hasn't had to face her accusers. And meantime, she piled on the compliments to Donald Trump. Guess why?
Now, overnight, the Department of Justice in the US released transcripts of an interview between the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and Ghislaine Maxwell. In a lengthy interview, Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year sentence for charges including sexual trafficking minors, says that as far as she knew, President Donald Trump was never inappropriate with anybody. Sarah Baxter is the director of the Marie Colvin Center for International Reporting and joins us now. Sarah, good afternoon.
Hello there.
What did we find out from the release of those interviews?
Well, the actual transcripts were fascinating, but also totally unrevealing about anything that people really want to know about. So, to wit, they were fascinating about Ghislaine herself, how she sees herself really as a victim. They were fascinating about the intimate details of her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the fact that they didn't have sex very often, practically never, because of various medical conditions on both sides. And yet she continued to share a bed with him many times and work for him. So there's this slightly peculiar relationship at the heart of their so-called love life. And obviously she was a manager for him, but to her, she was just more or less managing his properties. And yes, he liked massages, and maybe things got a little bit more disturbing and kinky when he started to take testosterone. But of course, there was not a word about anything that she was actually found guilty of. She didn't enter the witness box during her trial because she would have heard scores of women come and say how she introduced them to Epstein and prepared them for sex with Epstein, even though they were underage. And this is what she was convicted of. There's not a word of any of that. She hasn't had to face her accusers. And meantime, she piled on the compliments to Donald Trump. Guess why?
I mean, she said that he was always a true gentleman, friendly in social settings, and generally nothing, she saw or witnessed nothing inappropriate. Is this going to pacify the Epstein files issue that Donald Trump has been trying to deal with? I mean, his MAGA base have been very clear that they want to see those Epstein files. Will this go far enough to placate his base?
His base has already been placated, Alexis. We barely heard a peep from them over any of this. Fox News has ruminated a bit about, well, Ghislaine would say that, wouldn't she? But barely, they've barely gone there. And the base has piped down after repeated instructions to shut up from their leader. And that I think that something they would never take on trust. Imagine an interview with Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, where he just, whitewashed himself like that as he's tried to do. They were always very scornful. But they have piped down a bit about Ghislaine because they see that it embarrasses Donald Trump. I think she's hoping, well, she's definitely hoping for a pardon, and I think she may yet get one. She's already been moved to a much cushier facility, Club Fed in Texas, as it's known, rather than a hardcore facility in Florida for sex offenders and other convicts of serious crimes. And this could be a prelude to her release. There are two things she said that I think won't particularly help her case with MAGA people. She was extremely nice about Bill Clinton, even nicer about him than Donald Trump in some ways, and said he had never visited Epstein Island and that really Bill was more of a friend of hers than Jeffrey's. So that was interesting. Trump won't have liked that. And there was something else that she said that he won't have liked, because Trump is suing the Wall Street Journal and others over allegations that he sent a lewd birthday message to Epstein on his 50th birthday. Now, Ghislaine said she didn't remember. Now, of course, didn't remember is fine. She's been told she absolutely mustn't lie in these interviews, etc. So, and we know that people often take the witness stand, which this wasn't, and say, "I don't remember." But I'm sure that MAGA would have wanted to hear that she said, "Oh no, he never sent anything of the kind."
Sarah, she also said that there's no such thing as the Epstein files, which again then begs the question that what on earth was on Attorney General Pam Bondi's desk, which was going to be released a few months after the Trump administration took place.
Yeah, well, the trouble with the Epstein files is that it covers all and nothing, really.
Right.
So these files, in the minds of conspiracy theorists, which I notice you're going to be talking about soon, why do we always fall for conspiracies? These files are basically total compromat on incredibly important people, hopefully Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, and all MAGA enemies, which have maybe even video evidence of them performing, terrible sex crimes on underage girls, etc. And certainly that would be at its most fervid in the conspiracy swamps, but certainly a list of people who somehow or other Epstein was servicing. Now, what we do know he had was a book full of stuffed with absolutely incredible celebrity names, including, of course, Donald Trump's. Now, these apparently, we're told, are not the Epstein files because Donald Trump's name has been redacted numerous times from them. So, what is a file? Is it Epstein's phone book? Because that was pretty good. Or is it compromat? I think what Ghislaine was saying is he didn't keep compromat on people. He had cameras all over his mansion.
Yeah.
But was he using this to blackmail people? That's the conspiracy theory that may or may not be true. One never knows.
One doesn't know. Sarah, just briefly, let's touch upon President giving a press conference yesterday. He was asked how he would react if there's no deal between Presidents Putin and Zelensky.
I'll see whose fault it is. If there are reasons why, I'll understand that. I know exactly what I'm doing. We're going to see whether or not they have a meeting. That'll be interesting to see. And if they don't, why didn't they have a meeting? Because I told them to have a meeting. But I'll know in 2 weeks what I'm going to do. I have pretty good ideas.
He's going to know in 2 weeks. Under how much pressure is Donald Trump at the moment? Because before that meeting in Alaska, there were very stringent sanctions heading their way towards Russia. There were going to be even more had that meeting in Alaska not gone well. But we've heard very little about sanctions. And we've also heard very little about this possible trilateral, even bilateral meeting between Presidents Putin, Trump and Zelensky.
Yeah, there's no Nobel Prize in sight yet for Donald Trump, that's for sure. And he keeps extending the deadline. So the deadline was going to be up pretty soon. They were going to get together in a couple of weeks, Zelensky and Putin. And yet, as Trump said, I told them to meet. And yet somehow or other, Vladimir Putin isn't listening. And yet Trump is still having the gall to say, well, it depends whose fault it is. Putin has continued to bomb Ukraine. He even bombed and took out an American factory there, which, was probably targeted. And yet somehow Donald Trump's still searching around for who's to blame for slow walking these peace talks. The foreign minister for Russia, Sergei Lavrov, has said there's nothing in sight at the moment. And Donald Trump is waving the carrot of his friend Vladimir coming to the Los Angeles Olympics and, getting the red carpet there as well. So, will there be sanctions? He certainly threatened them. He's taking tough action against India, but not against other countries over Russian oil sales. And the whole thing seems to be one hot mess at the moment, I'm afraid.
Sarah, thank you. You did a good job of describing the hot mess, so we're grateful for that. Sarah Baxter there, Director of the Marie Colvin Center for International Reporting.